It's raining where I am now, the same soft rain that's been falling against the kitchen window for what I'm fairly sure is the 43rd Saturday in a row. I've stopped counting exactly. I have a tally on the inside of a cabinet door, in pencil, that resets each loop, but I keep a second, more honest count in my head, and the head count is the one I trust. 43 is close enough. I'm telling you this from the kitchen, sitting at the little island I picked out at a salvage place in 2017, with a cup of coffee that tastes the same every time I make it, because of course it does. And I'd like to tell you this slowly, because slow is the only way I know how to tell it now. The house is for sale. It has been for sale on this Saturday for as long as I've been alive in this Saturday. The sign in the front yard is the third one the realtor put in. The one with the cleaner font and the open house balloons are the cheap helium kind that go limp by 2 p.m., but bob just barely until then. The realtor's name is Marisol Hennig. She is 46, has the kind of warm Midwestern posture that makes you trust her without checking. And she will be here in about an hour to set out lemon water and cookies from the grocery store bakery, which she always pretends are from a friend. I am 42. My name doesn't matter. I think it used to matter very much to me, and I think the way I have stopped reaching for it is one of the things that should worry me most, but you'll see why in a while. The first time I lived this Saturday, I lived it the way you live any Saturday. I was tired. I'd packed for 2 months, and there were still drawers I hadn't gotten to. The divorce had finalized in March. The dog had died in April. My mother had moved into the assisted living place in May. And listing the house had felt like the last thing I owed the year before I could climb out of it. I made coffee. I wiped down the counters. I left through the side door at 9:30 so Marisol could have the place for the showings, and I drove out to the reservoir and sat in my car reading a paperback I'd been working through for 6 weeks. When I came back at 4, the lockbox was off. The cookies were gone, and Marisol left me a voicemail saying we had 2 strong maybes and 1 offer she expected by Monday. I made pasta. I went to bed. I dreamed of nothing I can remember. I woke up Saturday again. That's how it always starts. Not with a sound, not with a flash, not with a sense of ozone or any of the things stories like this one tell you to expect. I just opened my eyes at 6:53 on a Saturday that I have already lived, with the same throat soreness from the same dry air, and the same gray rectangle of light at the bedroom window, and the same bird outside doing the same warbling pattern of 3 then 2 notes in the magnolia. The first time it happened, I thought I'd dreamed Friday's events. The second time it happened, I called my sister in Seattle, who very gently told me I had also called her on Saturday morning twice and asked her the same questions, and that she was getting a little worried about me, and could I please call my doctor. I hung up and sat very still on the edge of the bed for a long time, listening to the bird. This isn't a story about how I figured out it was a loop. That part is short. By the 5th Saturday, I had it down. The mailman comes at 11:12. The neighbor across the street, Owen, drops his kid off at soccer at 9:15 and waves to me with the particular 2-finger wave he uses on weekends. The plumber's truck rattles past at 1:40 on its way to a job I will never see. If I move a vase 6 inches to the left in the morning, it is back in its place when I wake up. If I write a long, strange letter to myself and seal it in an envelope and put it in the freezer, the envelope is gone by morning, even the freezer burn it made on the bag of peas. The Saturday is sealed. Whatever I do inside it is allowed to happen, and then it isn't. What I want to talk about is the house, It's a 1947 colonial on a quiet street in a town you've never heard of unless you live within 15 miles of it. 3 bedrooms upstairs, 1.5 baths, a finished basement with a low ceiling that I always meant to do something with, a sunroom off the back that gets warm and yellow at 4 in the afternoon in any season, and a kitchen that has been remodeled twice. Once badly in the 80s by the people we bought it from, and once by us in 2018 with the white cabinets and the soapstone counter and the brass faucet I picked out late one night while my ex-husband, was in the other room ignoring me. The house is pretty. People say it's pretty when they walk in. They say it before they've even taken their shoes off. For the first 3 or 4 loops, I didn't notice anything wrong with the house. I thought the wrong thing was me, or the universe, or the little hot stone of grief I'd been carrying since the dog died. I spent those Saturdays mostly outside the house, the way I'd spent the first one, driving to the reservoir or sitting at the diner on Route 9 ordering pancakes I no longer needed to pay for. I thought maybe, if I could just live one Saturday differently enough, the loop would unlatch and let me into Sunday. It was the 5th loop when I stayed. I don't know why. I think I was tired of the diner. I think I wanted to see what Marisol actually did with the place when I wasn't in it. I cleared out before the showings began, but I came back at 10:40 and slipped in through the side door and stood very quietly in the mudroom, listening. A couple was in the living room. I could hear Marisol's voice, warm and low, the voice she uses for people she's already decided to sell to. She said, "It's the kind of house that gives back what you put in." I had never written that phrase. Not on the listing, not on the description sheet I helped her draft, not in any of the emails we'd exchanged. It wasn't a real estate phrase. It wasn't a phrase anyone says about a house. It was the kind of phrase you'd see embroidered on a pillow in a guest room owned by someone who doesn't actually have any guests. And Marisol said it the way you'd say, "The basement is dry," like it was simply true. And the couple in the living room made the small approving noise people make when they hear something they want to believe. I stood in the mudroom with my coat still on, and I felt, and I want to describe this carefully, I felt the floor under my feet behave the way water behaves when something underneath it is moving. There was no actual movement. The floor was the same hardwood it always was. But I felt the asterisk attention of the house, the way you can feel a person looking at you from across a room without seeing them. The house was paying attention to the couple in the living room. The house was deciding something about them. I left through the side door before Marisol could find me. I sat in my car at the end of the driveway with the engine off, and the rain just starting to bead on the windshield, and I thought, slowly, that is not how a house behaves. The 6th loop, I tried to listen for the phrase again. Marisol said it at 10:52, this time to a different couple, an older man with kind eyes and a younger wife with a baby on her hip. And she added a second phrase I hadn't written. It does best with people who let it do its work. The wife laughed, a tired, polite laugh, and the husband said, "Oh, we like to let things settle." And the baby on her hip turned its head, very slowly, and looked at the corner of the room where the radiator clanks at 1:15 every Saturday afternoon. I was watching from the dining room, half hidden by the doorway. The baby looked at the radiator the way you'd look at a person you just realized was already in the room with you. And then the baby looked away and put its small fist in its mouth. By the 7th loop, I had a notebook. By the 8th loop, I had begun to draw a map. The map wasn't of the house exactly. It was of where the wrongness thickened. Because that's the right word. It doesn't appear, it thickens. The way fog thickens in low places without arriving. The sunroom at 4 in the afternoon, when the light goes that particular yellow, was thicker than it should have been. The upstairs hallway between 9:30 and 10 was strange. The air there had a held breath quality, like the hallway was waiting for something specific. The basement was almost normal, except for a 6-foot patch of floor near the old laundry hookup, which always felt about 3 degrees colder than the rest, even with my hand a foot above it. The half bath under the stairs felt fine until 11, and then it felt the way the inside of a closed jar feels. The master bedroom, my bedroom, felt the worst between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, when nobody was supposed to be in it. And I learned this because on the 8th loop, I went up there at 2:30 and stood at the foot of the bed and felt something behind me that was very interested in whether I would turn around. I did not turn around. I left. I went and sat on the front porch and watched a couple come out of the front door, and the wife laughed at something Marisol said, and the laugh sounded like the sound of agreement. I felt, distinctly, the house notice me on the porch and then dismiss me, the way you'd dismiss an old chair you'd already decided not to take with you when you moved. That was the 8th loop, and that was when I understood. The house was not haunted. The house was asterisk hunting. It was holding still and patient on a Saturday and presenting its best self to a sequence of strangers, and it was choosing. I should tell you about the buyers. The buyers do not stay the same from loop to loop. That was the first thing I had to make peace with. There is not one couple it has chosen and is luring back. Every Saturday, a different set of people drift through. Sometimes 3 groups, sometimes 5, sometimes a single quiet pair who linger for 40 minutes in the sunroom. I have made a list of all of them in my notebook, which is gone by morning, which I rewrite every loop from memory, which gets longer because the memory gets longer. There was the older couple with the baby. There were the 2 women in their 30s who held hands in the kitchen and discussed where the dog bed could go. There was a man by himself, mid-40s, named Daniel, who didn't take his coat off and walked through the house like he was looking for someone, and then sat on the sunroom couch for 10 minutes with his hands flat on his knees, breathing. There were the newlyweds who said, "Wow," 11 times in 20 minutes. There was a woman in her 60s whose adult daughter held her elbow gently as they went up the stairs, and who I later realized was looking at houses for the first time since her husband died. They are all real people. I have looked some of them up between Saturdays, except there is no between, but I mean inside the long Saturdays, on my phone, while the house is full of strangers who do not see me. Daniel is a hospice nurse who works at the regional medical center. The newlyweds are named Jenna and Cole, and they posted an engagement photo 2 years ago. The older woman with the daughter is named Marlene Vance. They are all real people who have, in another version of this Saturday I will never see, gone home and slept in their own beds, and woken up Sunday and gone on with whatever lives the loop has hidden from me. In this Saturday, one of them buys this house. Or, and this is the thought I cannot get rid of, one of them was asterisk going asterisk too. The thing about the buyers, the thing that took me the longest to articulate, is that they are too agreeable. I don't mean polite. People are polite at open houses. I mean that the questions they ask are softball questions, the ones whose answers couldn't possibly disqualify a house. They ask about school districts and about when the roof was last replaced. They don't ask about the foundation. They don't ask about the sump pump. They don't open the closet where I always meant to fix the door. They walk through the rooms in a particular floating way, the way you walk through a museum on a slow afternoon, and they nod at things Marisol points to. And when she says the strange phrases, and she has said many of them now, the kind of house that gives back what you put in asterisk, it does best with people who let it do its work. Some homes choose you. You know, they nod at those, too. They don't even register them as strange. They register them as the kind of warmth a realtor offers, and they let the warmth in. Marisol does not know what she is saying. I want to make that clear. I have watched her face very carefully, more times than is probably healthy. Marisol Hennig is a real woman with 3 kids and a tired husband and a Pomeranian named Biscuit. She has worked in this town for 19 years. She has sold me 2 houses, including this one, and she sold my parents the house I grew up in before they retired to Arizona. She is not in on this. Her mouth opens and the phrase comes out, and her eyes do not change. And a few seconds later, she will say something completely normal. The dishwasher's only 3 years old. And you can tell, watching, that she does not remember the strange thing she just said. The phrases pass through her the way a draft passes through a half-open window. She is not the house's agent. She is the house's mouth. The first time I tried to warn someone, it was the woman with the baby. I had decided, the night before, by which I mean the long evening of the 8th loop, after I had finally let myself name what I was looking at, that I would not just sit there and let it happen anymore. I waited for them in the kitchen, casually, pretending to be tidying. I caught the woman's eye when Marisol was in the dining room talking to her husband. I smiled. I said in the friendliest, most conversational voice I could manage, "Hey, between us girls, the upstairs hall has a weird thing in the morning. I never figured it out, just so you know." I said it lightly. I said it the way you'd say the second burner is finicky asterisk. The woman blinked at me. She rocked her baby. She said, "Oh, every old house has its quirks, doesn't it?" And her face was completely calm, and her eyes were completely empty of what I had just told her. It hadn't reached her. I felt it then, felt the house again, paying attention to me. Not the way it pays attention to the buyers. A different attention. Something closer to asterisk recognition, asterisk. As if it had made a small note on a small page somewhere that one of its furniture pieces had moved on its own. That was the 9th loop. I am being careful with the count from here. The 10th loop, I left a note on the kitchen counter. Plain paper, my own handwriting, propped up against the fruit bowl. I wrote, "The basement floor near the old laundry is colder than it should be. The upstairs hallway is strange between 9:30 and 10. The sunroom changes around 4. I am the owner and I am telling you the truth. Please, please don't buy this house. I left it where any buyer could see it. I went out for the showings. I came back at 4:15 and the note was gone. Not crumpled, not in the trash. Gone." Marisol's voicemail said 2 strong maybes and 1 offer she expected by Monday. The exact same voicemail. I tried other notes. I tried being subtle. I taped a note inside the cabinet under the kitchen sink that said foundation issue. Do not buy. It was gone. I wrote, on a sticky note inside the medicine cabinet, asterisk the people who lived here before us were unhappy. It was gone. I tried writing nothing at all and just leaving a single dead moth on the dining room table to see if anyone would react. The moth was there at the end of the day. The notes were not. The house lets in whatever isn't a warning. The 11th loop, I stayed for the showings. I made myself a cup of coffee, and I sat on the couch in the living room, and I told Marisol I'd decided to be present for the open house, that I wanted to see the people who might end up with my home. Marisol's face did a wonderful, polite, professional thing. A flicker of asterisk, this is unusual asterisk, immediately covered by asterisk, of course. Whatever you'd like asterisk. And she steered me, very gently, toward the front porch. She said it might be easier on me if I gave the buyers space to imagine themselves in the rooms. She said it in the warm, low voice. She put her hand on my upper arm and turned me, physically, toward the door. I let her. I sat on the porch with my coffee. The first couple arrived. They went in. I stood up and went in after them. Marisol intercepted me at the threshold of the dining room. She said, "Sweetie, why don't you go check on the lemon water in the kitchen for me?" She had a pitcher of lemon water in her hand. The pitcher was full. She said it as if she did not see the pitcher, and her eyes had the same calm emptiness I had seen on the woman with the baby. The phrase had passed through her again. "Sweetie, why don't you go check on the lemon water in the kitchen for me asterisk?" I had never been called sweetie by Marisol Hennig in 7 years of friendship. The phrase wasn't hers. The phrase was the house, using her, using a softness it had decided I would obey. I obeyed. I went to the kitchen. By the time I made it back, the couple was already on the stairs, and Marisol was telling them, "This is the kind of house that gives back what you put in." The 12th loop, I tried the window trick. I'd read once that real estate agents hate it when something in the house is visibly off. A chair left at a strange angle, a smell you can't quite place, a single window propped open in cold weather. People form an impression in the first 10 seconds. So before I left, I propped open the small window above the kitchen sink. I propped it open with a wooden spoon. The spoon stuck out at a peculiar angle into the room, and the window let in cold, damp air. It looked wrong. It looked like a thing a sane person would not do. I left. I came back at 4. The window was closed. The spoon was in the drawer it lived in. The house had tidied itself. I tried again the next loop with a glass of water on the floor in the middle of the entryway. I put it down very deliberately, a full glass, where no one could miss it. By 4, it was empty and on the counter, dry, as if it had never moved. The 13th loop, I left a single shoe in the upstairs hallway, my shoe, an old running shoe with a frayed lace. I took a picture of it on my phone. The picture was still on my phone at 4. The shoe was back in the closet. The bed in the master bedroom was made tighter than I'd left it. The house was straightening up after me. It is hard to describe what that did to me. There is a particular feeling that comes from being curated, from feeling a thing, a presence, an intention, a asterisk something, quietly putting your own life back into a more attractive arrangement so that strangers will like it. The house was not just hunting. The house was asterisk staging itself, and I was a piece of furniture it was rearranging to make the room read better. Every loop, the staging got a little tighter. By the 15th Saturday, the throw pillow on the sunroom couch was at an angle I never set, and the books on the shelf in the living room had been rearranged by spine color. By the 17th, the photographs of my parents and my sister and the dog had been taken off the mantel and put in a drawer in the dining room sideboard, where I would never have put them. By the 20th, the drawer wouldn't open. I want to tell you about the man named Daniel. He came in the 17th loop, in the 18th, in the 21st, in the 23rd. The same man every time by himself. Hospice nurse, mid-40s. He drove an old gray Subaru and wore a coat that had been good 15 years ago. He never took the coat off. Marisol always greeted him with a kindness that felt slightly different from the kindness she gave the others. a real kindness, not the houses. I think Marisol liked asterisk him. She didn't try to sell him. She just walked him through. He asked the real questions. He asked about the foundation. He asked about the sump pump. He opened the closet whose door I had never gotten around to fixing, and he said, "Oh, that's an easy one," in a voice that sounded like he had fixed many things in many houses. He sat in the sunroom for 10 minutes with his hands flat on his knees, and he closed his eyes. In the 23rd loop, I made a decision. I waited until Marisol stepped outside to take a call. I sat down across from him in the sunroom. I said, very quietly, "Don't buy this house." He opened his eyes. He looked at me. He really asterisk looked, the way I had not been looked at in months, maybe in a year, the way you can tell someone is actually seeing your face and not the shape of your face. He said, "Why?" The house behind me listened. I felt it the way you feel an animal behind you in a dark room. I felt the air in the sunroom thicken around my shoulders. The yellow light coming through the window went, for one fraction of a second, the wrong yellow, the color of the inside of an old lampshade, the color of a thing that has been left on too long. I said, "Something is wrong with it. Something is wrong here. I've been trying to tell people. I can't." My voice did something it hadn't done in years and tried to break. I steadied it. "I can't explain, but I am telling you, as one human being to another, please don't." He looked at me for what felt like a very long time. He did not look at the house. He kept looking at me. And then he said, gently, "You're not okay, are you?" It wasn't a question. It was the kind of sentence a hospice nurse must say 4 times a week. He said it without judgment, without pity. He said it the way you'd hand someone a glass of water. I said, "No, I'm not." He nodded slowly. He stood up. He said, "I'm sorry. I think I'm going to head out." He patted my shoulder once lightly, the way you'd touch a person you just met whose grief you didn't want to step inside, and he walked out of the sunroom and out of the house, and Marisol called after him from the porch, surprised, and he said something kind and apologetic and got in his Subaru and drove away. I sat in the sunroom for a long time. The house behind me did something I have to be careful about describing. It did not move. It did not creak. The light did not change. But there was, in the air around me, the unmistakable feeling of a held breath being slowly released. The house was asterisk, disappointed asterisk. It had wanted him. And I had cost it something, and the something had been visible to it, and it was now aware of me in a way it had not been before. That was the 23rd loop. I thought, perhaps stupidly, that I had won. I woke up Saturday again. The 24th loop, Daniel did not come. The 25th, he did not come. The 26th, he did not come. He had been crossed off. Whatever calendar the house was working from, my interference had removed his name from this Saturday's roster, and someone else had been moved up. I tried to feel relieved. I tried to feel like this was a small victory. But there was something underneath it. The knowledge that a different person was now coming through my door. A different person whose face I would have to learn. And that I would have to do this all over again and again. And that the house was going to keep producing buyers until I gave up or until one of them slipped past me. That is when I started to understand what was actually being asked of me. I am not a young woman. I am 42 years old and I have lived in this house for 7 years, and I lived alone in it for the last 14 months. I have eaten too many meals at this island, looking out this window, watching the same magnolia. I had been planning to sell because I could not stand to be in this house another season alone. The loop began on the Saturday I had finally let go of it. The house, I think, knew that. The house had been asterisk watching me let go of it. The house was hungry, and I was leaving, and so the house. And this is the thing I have to say carefully, because it is the thing I am most afraid of. The house built itself a Saturday in which it could choose whoever it wanted, with me as the gatekeeper, with me as the staging, with me as the part of itself that would, eventually, be too tired to keep refusing. The pull, I told you, has been getting a little stronger. I don't know how else to describe it. There are loops now where I wake up at 6:53 and I lie in bed, and the bed is so warm and the light is so familiar, and I think, well, what if I just don't get up? What if I just let Marisol come? What if I just let the showings happen? What if I just let one of them buy it? And then the loop ends and I move out, and someone else lives here, and whatever is going to happen is none of my business. There are loops where I have stayed in bed until 10, and the house has, very gently, made the bed asterisk softer asterisk. There are loops where I have walked into the sunroom at 4, and the yellow has been asterisk kinder asterisk. There are loops where Marisol has called me sweetie, and I have not minded. I am being curated. I have said this. But I think what I was trying not to say is that the curation has begun to work. I have noticed, in the last few loops, that I no longer reach for my own name with quite the urgency I used to. I have noticed that when I write notes to the buyers, and I still do, every loop, even though they are always taken, my handwriting has gotten a little neater, a little more decorative, a little more like the handwriting on a card you'd find on a side table in a guest room nobody uses. I have noticed that the bird in the magnolia, which used to be a wren, has begun in the last few loops to be a different bird. A bird I can't quite name. A bird whose 3 then 2 pattern has slowed to 2 then 1, like a clock running down. I think the house has decided that if it cannot have one of the buyers, it will have me. I don't know if it's a punishment for warning Daniel, and the woman with the baby and the older woman named Marlene Vance, who, in the 31st loop, I followed all the way out to her car and held the door open for and said, in the lightest possible voice, "Be very careful with this one, all right." Marlene patted my hand. Marlene said, "Thank you, dear. It is a lovely house." Marlene's daughter, behind her, looked at me for one fraction of a second with what I thought might be the start of understanding, and then she got in the car, and the door closed, and they drove away. The 32nd loop, Marlene didn't come either. None of the people I have warned have come back. Their names get crossed off. New names appear. The house has an inexhaustible supply of names. And every loop, the pull is a little stronger. I am sitting at the island. It is 7:30 in the morning. The coffee is in front of me. The bird outside is doing 2 then 1. In about an hour, Marisol will come. She will let herself in with the lockbox. She will set up the lemon water and the cookies. She will wait for the first buyers. I have been thinking this loop that maybe I should not leave. Maybe I should stay in the kitchen. Maybe I should be present, the way I was once, in the house I once owned, on a Saturday I once thought was the last hard one. I have been thinking that maybe the house has been right about something, that the kind of house this is gives back what you put in, that some homes choose you, you know, that it does best with people who let it do its work. Those phrases came out of my mouth just then. I want you to know that. I want you to know that I caught it. I caught it, and I wrote it down in the notebook that will be gone in the morning, the notebook I will rewrite from the memory that will be a little shorter than this one. I am going to drink the rest of this coffee. I am going to put the cup in the sink. I am going to take my coat off the hook by the side door, and I am going to leave, and I am going to sit in my car at the reservoir and read the paperback I have not finished in 43 weeks, because the moment I stay for the showing, the moment I sit down on the couch with my coffee and let Marisol bring the buyers into me, I think the loop will end. I think the loop will end, and I will not move out. I think the loop will end, and someone will buy this house, and I will still be in it. Not the way ghosts are in houses. The way wallpaper is in houses. The way a particular yellow light at 4 in the afternoon is in a sunroom. So I am going to leave. This loop, and the next one, and the next one. But I want you to know, and this is the only reason I am telling you any of this here, on a quiet rainy night when you have put something on to fall asleep to. I want you to know that the pull is getting stronger. I want you to know that the bird is getting slower. I want you to know that one of these Saturdays I am going to wake up, and the bed will be very, very soft. And the light will be very, very familiar. And Marisol's voice from the front porch will sound like the voice of someone I have known my whole life. And I am not sure anymore what I will do. If you ever come to a town you've never heard of, and a realtor named Marisol Hennig walks you through a 1947 colonial with a sunroom that gets warm and yellow at 4 in the afternoon, and she tells you, in a low, warm voice, that it's the kind of house that gives back what you put in, please. Just go. Don't even thank her. Don't even take a cookie. And if, while you're walking out, you see a woman in the kitchen, about 42, a little tired around the eyes, smiling at you in a way you can't quite place, and she catches your eye and tries to tell you something light, something offhand, something between us girls about the upstairs hallway, listen to her. Listen to her even if her hands are folded a little too neatly. Listen to her even if her handwriting on the note by the fruit bowl is a little too pretty. Listen to her even if her voice has the warm, low quality of someone who has lived in a house a very long time and has finally learned to love it. Especially then,